Please welcome Andrey Zayarni.
I need to correct something. We actually have already more than 26,000 stars on GitHub. And let's talk a bit about where we're coming from and where we're going. And maybe, yeah, so you saw the video. It looks like really super nice. And thanks, Juan, for producing it. And it looks like everything was super smooth and easy and, yeah, went well. But we struggled a lot. Especially at the beginning. We struggled with developing the first more or less stable version of the product. We struggled with finding the right people. We struggled with finding first customers. And as we found the first customers, we actually struggled to make them happy with the product. But why we're doing it still, like now for almost 4 years? Because still it makes fun, and there is more positive sentiment and positive feedback from the community than negative ones, and it makes fun. So we continue. But main question is maybe why we at all started this project and why we're doing it now. The basic answer is actually because my co-founder, Andrey, wanted to learn Rust. And you know that the best way to learn some new technology and new programming language is learning by doing. And he has this idea. Okay, there's another reason. So basically, we also at the previous company, we needed a solution like this, and we didn't find one. So Andrey started to develop one with his vision, with his idea how to extend the HNSW with the possibility to actually also add some filtering on top of just pure similarity search. And it did work out. So now we are kind of, again, more than 26,000 stars. Have tons of features, tons of adapters out there, like cool startups like DAS, for example. It's a really cool agentic platform from France, or big web scale adapters for customers like TripAdvisor. They just recently announced their AI-powered holiday planning tool, or the same like as an open table. It's pretty similar. So they just announced like a restaurant booking tool where 50,000 restaurants with all the data, with all the feedback, comments, and so on, feedbacks is stored in Qdrant. Or the biggest probably we know, at least we know, like the HubSpot, all the data, like the customer data, all the conversations there, the biggest cluster ever, they're running Qdrant at HubSpot. Or Deutsche Telekom, their support bot for Magenta support bot is using Qdrant. The second question is like, why we started the company? Because we could just continue the open source project on the side and do our daily job at some companies. Because of the traction. So we got a lot of like, first we got some stars, but then we got like feature requests. We got contributors, and we got a lot of bug requests, like bug issues on the GitHub. And the bug issues is the best indicator for product market fit, basically. It means that somebody's using your product or trying to use, even though it's still buggy. So yeah, some numbers. So from the very first like commit in 2020 probably to over 60K community members overall. Hundreds of millions of downloads, more than 100 contributors. The next question is where this traction is actually coming from. And the reason is basically we are living on huge mountains, planets or galaxies of unstructured data. And we're producing this data every millisecond. Basically when we send an email, shoot a photo or video like right now, make transcription and so on, we click on the web, we're producing tons of unstructured data. And vector search or search in general is the right tool to kind of to analyze this data, to build applications on top of this data. And it not always works well with, I don't call it legacy, but classical search tools. We see the clear need for a more advanced information retrieval tool. I mean, inverted index is great, simple. BM25, we love BM25, right? But we believe we can do better. That's why we do projects like Minicoil, for example, where we use the power of BM25, but we add context on top of it. That's why we, in the next version, correct me if I'm wrong, gonna introduce relevance feedback, and you will, you can participate in the talk and hear about it later today, I guess. Yeah, and let's look at the evolution of the information tool just within a few years since this generative AI hype started. So the first wave was like basic RAG. Hey, LLM, please don't lie. Please don't hallucinate. Better ask some external data source and pull the information, construct the answer, and deliver it to the user. Sounds pretty simple, right? But it isn't. So there are challenges with chunking, how to do chunking the right way, embeddings, and so on. So like there's tons of different solutions, and they're not solved till now. So it's a mess. And now we're at the agentic AI age, all talking about agents since last year. In agents, we tell them to do like to complete tasks, and what they do under the hood, they need to make decisions. In order to make decisions, they need to retrieve some information from different sources again, and they become the main users of such tools, like for vector search tools. At the same time, they need also to remember things we ask them, so next time they can use this context. So there is a need for memory. And the third wave, and we see it coming clearly, all these agents will come to your devices, to your houses, handhelds, phones, wearables, robots. And the robots, if you ask them something, they can use a small language model maybe, but they need also to pull some information, some real-time information, or some private information from your documentations, whatever. And they will need these tools again to retrieve the information. And they will need memory. They will need to remember what you asked them to do yesterday and construct their answer for today's question. That's why we introduced just recently Qdrant Edge. Okay, what's Qdrant today? It's a retrieval engine. Andrey will tell you in a bit. So originally we used to call it neural search engine. Then, because of marketing shit, we added vector database, but it's wrong name. It's misleading. It's not what we're doing. Andrey will explain you in a minute. But yeah, so it's retrieval engine, real-time, production ready, deploy anywhere, blah blah blah. What matters is that we believe that we already have like a pretty solid solution, and our customers trust us. And with each new version, it comes like every 2-3 months, you're gonna get even a better one, more powerful, more advanced. This is our promise. Thank you for coming. And now I'm giving over to Andrey. He will tell you why, what, and what not.
This is me. If you didn't recognize it's me. I have 15 minutes, and Andrey have already spoiled half of my presentation, but I will try my best to entertain you. So what I'm going to tell you about now is a bit of our vision, like what are we building, why are we building it, and most importantly, what we are not building, right? So this is a part where I make a lot of controversial statements to make you laugh at me, I guess. But let's see. So the main question I want to answer in my 15 minutes is, what is Qdrant? You probably, actually I want to ask you a question first, like how many of you actually use Qdrant? Can you please raise a hand? At least once. That's good, good, good. So we have, right, thank you. So I can skip the part where I explain what is vectors. All right. So my point here is that to answer what Qdrant is, I need to first answer what Qdrant is not. And this is a part which Andrey have already spoiled. And my answer here is Qdrant, like my take on this, right, is Qdrant is not a database. So it might sound controversial, especially if you take a look at our website somewhere, it still says that we are a vector database. So please forget about it. Well, technically I would say that vector database is not a database, but to make it simple, I would just say that Qdrant is not a database. And Qdrant is not a database because vectors are not data. Are you surprised? I hope not. So let's dig a bit deeper into this conspiracy here. So you should all know this process, right? Please raise a hand if you don't know what it means. Good. So the embedding process is when you take your text, you convert it into vector using some kind of embedding model. And my claim here is that this process, it does not create any new information. So all the things you have in vector database is not new. It's a transformation of some original data you pulled from somewhere else, right? So for this reason, I can say that, yeah, vector database is not a database because it doesn't hold actual new data. It just holds a transformation of something which exists somewhere else, right? But what does it make difference, right? It's still bytes. We can still store bytes in a table, but yeah, who cares that it's not actual new data? It's still a data, right? But here's another, maybe a bit less controversial statement, is that there is no universal and applicable everywhere approach of how to store your information. There are a lot of compromises you need to make, a lot of trade-offs you need to make to build something which works well for your specific use case. And to give you maybe some very trivial example of it is, imagine a binary tree, right? You all know what binary tree is, right? Good. So binary tree, you can like insert new points into a binary tree. You can quickly search inside binary tree. But binary tree on its own is not really native to modern computers, right? Binary tree uses a lot of like randomly allocated chunks of data, which is not really nice for modern CPU architecture. But if you only introduce a single constraint that your data is immutable, you can ditch all the whole concept of binary tree and just use a sorted list. And sorted lists are much more efficient. Like you can just store this whole thing in a chunk of data, chunk of memory, and randomly access it without any problem. And it simplifies a lot. And this principle, so as soon as you introduce some kind of constraint or like choose in a trade-off, you unlock a massive amount of optimizations for yourself. And it works on like each level of architecture, from how your distribution, like how consensus works, how like multi-tenancy works, how very low-level data structure on your machine works. It's all very important. It's all unlocks a very different optimizations. And in Qdrant, we actually aim to exploit this fact very, very much. So I guess at this point, I can finally start answering the question what Qdrant actually is and what kind of trade-offs we choose for it. So first of all, Qdrant is a search engine, which assumes that it prefers a search workload. It prefers read over write. It prefers scalability and low latencies over transactional guarantees. So obviously, you should not put your like login password data, like authentication tokens into Qdrant, because it's just wrong solution. It makes different assumptions about your data. But if you actually use it for right purposes, it can benefit from all the trade-offs I mentioned on the slide before this. So it's very important to distinguish those two use cases and get the best solution for the right task. Second point here is that Qdrant is for vectors. So Qdrant is not a general purpose search engine for everything. Qdrant is built for vectors. Vectors are the first class citizen in Qdrant. And whenever we decide what feature we want to develop, we ask ourselves, like, will it benefit our main use case? Will it benefit our vector similarity core? And if the answer is yes, that we likely will implement something like this. If answer is no, if it's something like secondary feature which also compromise some other use cases, we will likely decline it and put it in the forever dead backlog somewhere in Notion. Right? So like this is again a trade-off which allows us to build a very specialized storage, a very specialized engine just for vectors, which cannot be beat by any other system which is not designed for vectors, just because we benefit from all the trade-offs we make. And finally, Qdrant is standalone, and what I mean by this is that we made a decision to own our own architecture in some sort of speak. That means that we are responsible for the whole architecture from API down to the machine level. We write our own assembly code if we want, if we need it. We do not rely on any third-party libraries. So this gives us an ability to implement features which require the full cycle of integration from API down to the storage, which many others just cannot afford because they do not own their full code base. And this is very important for us, and we want to exploit this even more further. So we will do low-level stuff ourselves, and we will be happy about it, I guess. So that's all. Thank you.
Please welcome Robert Eichenseer, Microsoft.
Okay, hey, great. Good to see you guys, and what an impressive story, yeah. As you can see, my name is Robert Eichenseer, born and raised in Bavaria, small town boy. I'm working inside of Microsoft. I have a title as, let me look it up, Strategic Technical Lead. We change those titles every 6 months. Think of me as a developer. I'm an engineer by heart, and I'm super proud to be here on stage with Qdrant because we, Microsoft and Qdrant, we see ourselves in a technology partnership. And what I would like to talk today with you about is something we as Microsoft has launched as open source, because open source and the whole vision of Qdrant, this is something which is also close to our mind. And I want to talk with you about NL Web, the natural language web, where we see Qdrant really in enterprise use cases. But before we dive into NL Web, let me talk a little bit about something you might not in your first idea link with Microsoft. Open source software and Microsoft. And yes, maybe a couple of years ago, that was not that success story, but let me give you some ideas how this has changed. So in 2009, Microsoft contributed more than 20,000 lines of code to the Linux kernel. As you know, in 2015, the Visual Studio Code launch on GitHub, where you can use Visual Studio Code, where we even see, meanwhile, AI competition in our own Visual Studio Code environment. And when I say own, I just mean where we started it. It's not really ours. In 2018, there was the GitHub acquisition, and our CEO, Satya, really proclaimed Microsoft is all in open source. And I think this is really a mind shift inside of Microsoft. This is a big change. We had a couple of additional CNCF contributions like Dapper, the Distributed Application Programming Runtime, Radius, Dalek, Drazi, Semantic Kernel, and AutoGen. AutoGen also a very interesting AI framework to power up AI development. And just this year, in 2025, we launched what we call NL Web, the natural language web, where Qdrant is a very vital part of it. And we have chosen Qdrant really on purpose. And when we talk about this natural language web, you might ask yourself, what is the natural language web? What does it mean? Is this yet another Microsoft marketing buzzword? And I do think it's something more. It's something way more. So when we look at our current world, what keeps the world really spinning? What keeps the world running? Most of the time it's a web page in whatever technology stack developed. And the humans, they do the classic web browsing. We do it all day. If it's in an app, if it's in the web, if it's a page, doesn't matter. We just browse this page. And now since the age of ChatGPT, everybody's asking for some kind of natural language interface to existing applications, to existing app sites. And I'm pretty sure all of you have already developed something similar or right at the moment in the middle of developing something like this. Now we are, as we have already heard in the intro, in this age of the agentic web. And now all of a sudden, and I'm pretty sure you have seen this, there are agents out in the world which can use a computer to browse web pages. So more or less an agent is using the interface which was designed for a human. So we emulate here a human to really browse, get information, and put information into web pages. And then we have other agents which create the web pages. Sounds a little bit like there is potential for optimization. And this is exactly what NLWeb is addressing. When we look into NLWeb, then we assume, yeah, there is a need for a natural language interface for an existing web page. And this additional need for a natural language interface in NLWeb is provided by open source standards or by open standards. So we are using the information which is most probably already in the page. So RSS feeds, schema.org for getting schema to the data. And then we are using, again, open standards, MCP, the Model Context Protocol. Not invented, founded by Microsoft, but an industry protocol, meanwhile, very broadly adopted. And we're using inside of NLWeb exactly these open standards. We are using A2A, agent to agent, to allow agent communication inside of web page. And now guess what? Yeah, there is a need for a vector search engine. And we're using here Qdrant. And if you go to the GitHub repository, Qdrant is there very prominent as, let me say, one of the engines which powers this, which does not mean that it's the only one. It can be replaced. If you have a favor for another one, you can, but we have chosen Qdrant here to really power this initial GitHub repository. And then all of a sudden, we have served the human with the classic web page. We have served the human by giving him a natural language interface. And now using NLOP, the natural language web, and the technologies like MCP A2A, all of a sudden we are using open standards to allow agents also to communicate, to harvest the information inside of the web pages. And from a visionary perspective, we think that NLWeb is to MCP and agent to agent like HTML is the same thing to HTTP. So really it could revolutionize how existing web pages, which really rule the world, which spin the world right at the moment, can be moved with not so much effort into this new agentic world. And if you ask yourself, how does that look like? I have here two samples. This is a page from Common Sense Media. And this Common Sense Media is using NLWeb and Qdrant as an search database or as a vector database, and I learned it's not a database, as a vector search engine. And I can really ask here questions in natural language. So I want a set of books that will keep my 10 years old occupied and off screens for the summer. Try to get this query into the traditional web pages where you can look for books. You might have success. Most often you do not have really that success. But way more impressive and way more important from my perspective, you can continue the conversation with the web page, all powered by NLWeb, by open standards like MCP, A2A, and Qdrant as the vector store, as the vector search. And I can ask here as many follow-up questions as I want. Let me show you another sample. And the other sample is, yeah, I know it. Every AI demo starts somewhere with a recipe, and yeah, for sure, I also have something like this. Here's a sample for a recipe, and I say, hey, I want something cool and refreshing like a milkshake, but I'm lactose intolerant. what can I do? Try to do this in your typical recipe cooking application. You might not be that successful. Using NLWeb powered by Qdrant, you have a very, very simple way to AI enabling your current web page with these natural language interfaces, and also serving the humans, as well as, because this is also part of an agentic interface, to also power agents in the agentic world. And now if you ask, hey, how can I develop this? What you see here is just a straightforward sample from the GitHub repository. I have just cloned the GitHub repository. I start my web page, and I go to the web page, and I have here a demo. As part of the SDK powered by Qdrant, I give it an access token, and GitHub access token, so that it can access a model. In this case, it's a straightforward GPT-4 model. And what is now super interesting is, when I now ask a question, and yes, I'm from Microsoft, therefore let me ask a question about .NET, by the way, open source. And when I query this, what's new in .NET 9 and focus on optimization features, you see a lot of information there, and you also see this is coming from the RSS feed. So it is super straightforward to take an existing RSS feed from the Microsoft blog and just put the NLWeb interface on top of it. And let me go to the next slide. I'm from Microsoft. Therefore, from my perspective, nothing is stronger than really some quotes from customers. And we already heard it in the beginning of the keynote. TripAdvisor is a big fan of the technology, and also from Qdrant. Just go to the web which is provided, or to the link which is provided there, and then you see a couple of quotes from TripAdvisor, how easy it was to transform their existing web page, add a natural language interface, and make it ready for the agentic web and for the open source world out there. And by saying this, thank you very much for the attention, and I hand over to Rocco to give you way more further information.
So there are different versions how you can call Qdrant. So in the US, they tend to call it Qdrant. We just learned another one, Bavarian Qdrant. Okay, all good. Okay, so before Rocco comes on stairs, so just to explain. So we continue the topic of the NLWeb, and basically in June of this year, I met Guha, who is actually the main contributor of NLWeb in Stanford, and we discussed a few ideas, and I had an idea, and then I went back and posted on LinkedIn, hey, I have an idea, and I'm looking for AI engineers to help me to develop it, and now we're here. The project is already online, and Rocco is one of the developers. There is another one, Harun, Rocco. It's your stage.
Thank you, Andrey. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm Rocco Fortuna, and I'll be presenting NLWeb 1, a project developed with Harun and led by Andrey, CEO of Qdrant. Qdrant, or however you want. All right, so before I start and get into what NLWeb 1 can do, I'd like to just reflect on the human-technology interaction development throughout the years. When I was younger, my first phone was a flip phone, and you had to press 3 times the same button to get one letter out. Nowadays, kids are given smartphones before they can even speak, and they learn to interact with this technology. They learn to talk to ChatGPT at a very young age, and they ask personal life questions, they ask technical questions, they use it for coursework, and they also will use it at work, just like we do, if not better. And so we see the human-technology interaction develop in a way that is less and less about clicking and scrolling and browsing through web pages, and much more about simply talking to the AI or to virtual assistants. So NLWeb 1 is the simplest way to get your website to talk to your users. So as you can see, you can simply sign up. You can use Google or GitHub for convenience. You enter the sitemap XML on the website, which is the the page that lists all the pages reachable. So we can do the heavy lifting for you, index the website, you insert your providers of choice, obviously Qdrant, 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 and then you just wait a couple of minutes. Whenever it's done, you can try it out on the NLWeb 1 website directly. And yeah, it should have been a little bit quicker, I guess. You just ask it a question, and it will give you answers with the source it took them from, so there's no hallucination. And yeah, so there you go. The users can go on the sources and double check or just go deeper into it. All right. And yeah, so this is now up and live. You can go check it out. Please let us know if you have a website, try it out and give us feedback. Let us know what your use case might be. And next up, we'll be improving it, allowing for bigger websites. We'll be increasing the widget customization so it can match your branding. We'll be adding more connectors so you can connect data that goes beyond what's publicly listed on the web page. But what we're most excited about is, as was mentioned before, the connection with MCPs. That will allow the agent to go beyond simply answering with information to the questions the user might have and take actions on behalf of the user. If you own a shoe store, a common user story might look like simply going on the website, asking for the coolest purple shoes that cost no more than $100 and whatever else. And then simply ask to pick one and ask to ship it right to their place. And if you notice, none of these interactions require any physical interaction with any hardware. It could happen simply by speaking. So our vision is to make any website a conversational front door. We've proven it works with this MVP, and we're now working towards the future where interactions with technology will be more and more like just interacting with each other. Thank you very much. If you have any questions later on, please let us know. Happy to chat and enjoy the rest of the event. Thank you for everyone involved in the organization of the event.
Please give applause. Manuel and Meyer, Qdrant Cloud.
Hi everyone. I see a lot of people there on the stairs. There's tons of space up here if you want to come down. And I think there's also a little bit more in the back. So might be a little bit more comfortable, but feel free to also stay seated. Cool. I want to talk a little bit about Qdrant Cloud. And over the past year, the team's been effortlessly working on improving Qdrant Cloud, making it really like an enterprise scale platform for your vector search workloads. And here's a couple of features that we've added over the last year. On the one side, we looked into automation and how can we improve it. And we added the Cloud API as well as Terraform provider, so you can really start managing your cluster and your environment through code. You can provision, you can scale, you can update your clusters all through code eventually. Then we worked on enhancing the security as well. We introduced Cloud RBAC, so now you can really assign very specific permissions to your team for billing, for managing the cluster, and so on. Another part that we introduced, which we're really excited about, are granular database API keys. And they let you basically give access to users, but also applications down to the collection level and even the vector level. So you can set permissions even based on a payload filter, and you can also add TTLs to that as well. And another thing that we added is advanced monitoring and observability. So we're exposing Prometheus as well as OpenTelemetry metrics. So now you can really connect Qdrant and all the data to your Grafana, your Datadog, or any other enterprise stack that you're using, so you can always stay up to date on the health of your clusters. And then another part that's been important for Qdrant from the start is deployment flexibility. We want to make sure that you can build your applications and run your applications wherever you want to. So that's something we've been focusing from day one, and those are our different deployment options. You're probably all very familiar with Qdrant open source. In 2023, we learned that earlier, we introduced Qdrant Cloud, which lets you basically create an initial cluster fully managed on AWS, GCP, or Azure, and you can start with a free trial. It's actually a free forever 1 gigabyte cluster, but then that also scales up all the way to production level workloads, and we have billions of vector type applications on there. Last year, we introduced something that was very new to the industry, which is a hybrid cloud deployment. So we heard from a lot of folks in the community, hey, I want to run the vector database in my own environment for compliance reasons, privacy reasons, or even latency reasons. I want to run it close to the stack where I have the rest of my applications running. And so we introduced hybrid cloud, which is basically a decoupled architecture. So you have a control plane and you have a data plane. The data plane is in your environment. You deploy Qdrant through Kubernetes into your environment, but you still have the managed environment, like a control plane in the cloud that gives you the feel of a managed cloud, but with the full privacy and security of your data. And then we also have Qdrant Private Cloud. If you really want everything in your own environment fully air-gapped, we can help with that as well. Qdrant Hybrid Cloud is something we're really excited about, and especially because we're working with really great partners that let you deploy Qdrant into their environments. And yeah, as part of this, I want to bring up on stage Kevin from Vultr, one of our really exciting partners. We're really excited about working with them, and yeah, he's going to talk a little bit more about Vultr and the partnership that we have. Thank you.
Well, exciting to be here, everyone. True fact, back in the early 90s, 1991, I actually used to live in Berlin. And I'm so excited to be back here because I actually had the opportunity to see Berlin again for the very first time at the marathon last weekend. And I liken the marathon that I ran last weekend to the marathon that we're now running here with Qdrant, because together we want to change the game in enterprise cloud compute to help every organization rebuild every single enterprise application, to put AI at the core, to put vector search at the core, so we can transform the employee and customer experience, so we as regular human beings can have conversations with brands to actually get the answers to all of the questions that we have. And I'm excited to be here today to talk about how we at Vultr are not only helping people rebuild their enterprise over the next 10 years as we rebuild all of our enterprise applications, but actually I'm a customer of Qdrant. So I actually am dependent on my own customer experience as a CMO, leveraging the roadmap that you just heard here today. So I want to take you through a little bit of an example about how strategic Qdrant is to our go-to-market and how we expect to deliver wave 1, wave 2, and wave 3 to transform our experience. Wave 1, of course, being simple RAG agent. Wave 2, of course, being more agentic, and wave 3 going to true natural language interactions. So, I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Vultr. You may not have heard of us. We're typically classed as one of the neoclouds. The neoclouds that you probably more likely have heard about are the larger neoclouds, CoreWeave, Lambda. Well, we're number 3 in the stack and soon to be number 1. We're the actually only one that has a 10-year operating history and global footprint across 32 global data center regions. So the complete scale of an Amazon or an Azure or a GCP, with over 250,000 developers leveraging our infrastructure day in and day out. We like to say build local, deploy global. And what's key here is, as part of our global cloud platform, we are putting Qdrant at the core for all enterprise use cases for people that are rebuilding and deploying new agentic AI solutions. As a premier partner of both NVIDIA and AMD, we fulfill, and are the only one that fulfill, latest generation NVIDIA and AMD GPUs globally. That's the 355X if you're on the AMD side of the house. That's the GB300, B200 if you're on the NVIDIA side of the house. But what's core to all of that, again, is at the front is a vector search, because the vector search is the most critical part of the application stack. Now, why do I say that? It's because we are a developer-first platform. And as a CMO, one of the things that I focus on is the developer experience. And how do I do that? Well, we actually leverage the community to get insights into what are they looking to accomplish. And every single week, based on things that are of topical relevance to developers, we produce comprehensive documentation. Our entire go-to-market is based on enabling developers to find the information they need to learn the new technologies they need to exploit in order to accomplish something. Especially during this day and age of change, developers need to learn more things than ever. So we want to provide all of the robust documentation so that regardless of task, developers can find something helpful to accomplish their goal. And you can actually experience this all live. You just literally pick up your mobile phone right now, go to docs.vultr.com, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Our goal every week is to produce the most relevant documentation for whatever tasks developers are trying to do. And this is just an example of all of the documentation that we provide. It provides, obviously, documentation on our platform, but we go well beyond that. It doesn't even matter if it's related to our platform. We're going to provide comprehensive documentation on it. Our goal is to be as helpful and as intuitive as possible. The key here is how do we even go beyond just having thousands and thousands and thousands of relevant articles and guides and learning paths. All of that information can get lost. It has to be easily discoverable. So this is what we are doing with Qdrant. So our first goal is to build a fully agentic experience for our developers. And like we heard, we're going to follow the Qdrant roadmap. Wave 1, simple RAG. Wave 2, moving to full agentic autonomous agent, which we'll talk about in a second. And then wave 3, moving into the natural language interaction. And so what we just recently deployed is our new console, which is agent.vultr.com. And agent.vultr.com is literally just a console application, so you can just ask us any question. And again, you could just go to your mobile phone and try it out right now. Go to vultr.agent.com and ask it any question about Vultr, about Qdrant, and you're going to get an authoritative, comprehensive answer based on all of the technical documentation we have ever produced, all of our support interactions, everything that's ever happened that we know of in Vultr is now all vectorized and put into the Qdrant vector search engine. And the way it works is, again, we produce a ton of content. Thousands and thousands of articles every single quarter, dozens and dozens of blog posts, LinkedIn posts. We produce incredible amounts of white papers and research reports. We also generate a lot of support information because every day people are asking us support questions and that we're giving support responses. All of that data, using, of course, obviously our infrastructure, we eat our own dog food, using our managed Kafka service, we're constantly listening to updated documentation, we're pulling it in real time, we're chunking it, and then we're creating all of our embeddings, and then we're dumping it into Qdrant, okay? So any bit of information we produce anywhere in the company all gets vectorized and it gets dumped into Qdrant, everything. You have a support interaction, that's going into Qdrant, okay? And the reason is very simple, is because what we want to make certain is that at the end of the day, you can go to agent.vultr.com there in the bottom, ask a question, and then using our infrastructure, we are deploying globally now different pools of resources. We're a cloud platform, so we have node pools for running inference. We have node pools for running our application stack, agent.vultr.com. It's a complex application. And of course, we have node pools to actually run the vector search. So this is the architecture. It's our default architecture for all applications going forward in Vultr. That's vultr.com. When we're building it, that's our agent.vultr.com, our docs.vultr.com, our blogs.vultr.com. It's the common architecture that's going to transform our entire customer experience. If you can't tell, I'm super excited about it. And I have to give my shout out to my team, Mayank DevNeth. And here's an example of what Mayank and my DevRel team built. So this is real time, you can test it out, how to deploy Qdrant vector database on VKE, which stands for Vultr Kubernetes Engine. And of course, it goes and shows you the entire reasoning process of how it's going to think through the response. And then it's actually going to be very helpful. It's not going to give you a simple answer. it's going to generate documentation for you. It's going to give you the step-by-step guide on what you need to do with the authoritative links to the documentation where you can actually see the code snippets that you can copy and paste into your terminal window to accomplish the task. So you ask Agent the question, and it will say, out of all this stuff, these are the 5 things that you need to go through in order, and in each of these things, you're going to have a terminal window to copy and paste. So you literally can learn by doing. And so what we want to do is we want to help developers fire on all cylinders. Again, take all of our content so that anytime you ask any question, we're going to do the search in Qdrant, go through all the re-ranking, and then generate the best possible response. Now, this is where we are today, and where we're going next is even more exciting, because what is coming next is a full MCP backend implementation, and I'm going to look at my DevRel team because I kind of want it by the end of October, but we'll see what they can do. Where you can not only ask, how can I do something, and have Qdrant give you the result, but then you can say, can you spin that up on my Vultr account? Wouldn't that be amazing? How do I deploy Qdrant on Vultr? Here's all the documentation. Great, can you just do that for me? Awesome, because we have all of the code, so we're going to enable you to turn over the keys to allow the agent to take all those actions on your behalf. Now, for the developers out there, don't get too lazy. It is good to do your own code at some point in time, but we want to make easy things even easier for all of you. And how easy is it to get started? Well, Qdrant Hybrid Cloud makes it all possible. Super simple. Just go to Qdrant Hybrid Cloud, and this is literally what we do. You can just spin it up and deploy the data plane directly on Vultr infrastructure. We also provide the option to deploying Qdrant directly within our own user experience, and soon we will agent enable that as well, so you can literally just tell the agent to go forward. So what we are promoting to all of our enterprise customers worldwide is when they're rethinking their cloud architecture to do the typical thing and build your application, containerize your code, set up all your pipelines, create all your availability zones. But in every availability zone, in every data center region where you're deploying and running production inference for an application, deploy Qdrant. Make Qdrant your default vector store, your default vector search engine for every single application. If you're not using Qdrant today, I can tell you right now, you need to use Qdrant. It is transformative of your customer experience. And where we're going after Wave 2, hopefully Wave 2 will hit this end of October, is we're going to full natural language interaction. So instead of having to actually type a question, why can't you open your mobile phone, go to agent.vultr.com and say, can I deploy Qdrant on Vultr? Yes, you can deploy Vultr on Qdrant on Vultr. Would you like me to email you the documentation? No, thank you. Could you just set that up for me and let me know when you're done? Great, I will set that up for you now. I'm done. Wouldn't that be great if you could just talk to your agent on your phone and never have to worry about cloud infrastructure ever again? That's the power of Qdrant. That's the power of where we're going. Qdrant is going to transform our customer experience. Thank you to the Qdrant team.
Give applause for Neil Kanungo, Qdrant community.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Hope you guys are enjoying your day. This session is all about you. And a little introduction about me before we get into you. I am the new head of developer relations at Qdrant, and I have worked in the developer relations area for, I don't know, maybe 10 years. I've worked with various products, and I am very excited to work with the Qdrant community. I've been reaching out to various developers around LinkedIn and our Discord community, and the response has been fantastic. The Qdrant developers are really passionate about our community, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the power of Qdrant for developers and what developers are doing for Qdrant in return, and how we're helping each other spark new ideas, help each other, and grow to solve some of the world's most challenging problems. So to start with that, let's talk a little bit about the momentum. So you've heard about our 26,000 GitHub stars. Now this is more than a vanity metric. It's a point of, I would say, developer credibility on Qdrant's mission. It's a proof point that we are resonating, the mission is resonating in the open source community, and what we are doing to help people solve challenging problems. And with that, we actually have a very active Discord community. And what I feel like is important in communities, I have 3 principles that I feel like are important in communities, and that is you should give something, you should get something, and you should have fun. And we're creating that in our Discord community every day. We see people helping each other. We try to help people. We have our fun activities. We've just done our hackathon where we have a lot of people chatting in there about their hackathon. We have ways to network, and we're working to improve and create more engaging activities in our Discord environment. And that's digitally, but in person, our DevRel team has done over 30 events this year. That's meetups and other events that we participate in, and that allows us to participate and engage with you all in person and environments, to engage face-to-face, build relationships, understand your use cases, your challenges, your needs, introduce possible solutions to you, and really, again, build those relationships. And that leads us to today, our very first Vector Space Day. I don't even know how many people we have here today. We were expecting 300. We had over 500 registrants, and I think we're well over 300 people attended, and so people coming from all around the world. So thank you all for attending and making this first Vector Space Day so far a success, and hopefully enjoyable experience for you. But this isn't just about adoption and metrics. This is about momentum. And we're experiencing great momentum with our community, and we hope to continue that with you all. And this momentum is being led by members of our community, which we call our Qdrant stars. These are not Qdrant employees. These people, these developers, they create guides, they do events, they do videos, they host workshops and hackathons, they travel. They're, again, not Qdrant employees, they're just leaders in our community. One I would like to call out who can be here today is Tarun Jain, and he's based in India, and he travels around India. He actually just went to Melbourne, Australia to do a PyCon event there. He presented on MCP servers in Qdrant. He also recently did some blog posts on agentic AI with Uber. He does various events in India. We also have 3 Qdrant stars here today, and I'd like them to stand up for a moment. If I can't see you all, but I'd like Clelia, Pavan, and Robert to please stand up if you can, and get a quick round of applause for them. Thank you. And these 3 Qdrant stars are actually all 3 presenting at Vector Space Day today. So this is their way of giving back. We love to spotlight the Qdrant stars. They're leaders, again, in the community. And the STARS program is great because it's developers that start by just asking questions and learning like any other developer would. And they start charting paths for thousands of other developers to continue their journey. And it's really fantastic. I got into DevRel myself because I enjoy teaching others, and I learn myself by trying to teach others the ideas and concepts that I want to learn. It helps me reinforce my knowledge, and I love seeing other people taking joy in doing that as well. So if any of you are interested in joining Qdrant Stars, find me or the DevRel team throughout the day. We can point you to the application. We do thousands of dollars of rewards every month on content and travel reimbursements. So it's a really great program. One of the best developer advocacy and community advocacy programs I've had the pleasure of being a part of. Next, I want to talk about what the DevRel team specifically is doing for the community and for developers like you, and that is the Qdrant Academy, which, like Kevin, if I'm looking at my DevRel team, If we can get this out in the next couple weeks, we're really close. The Qdrant Academy is like in its final throes right now. This is structured learning. So this is end-to-end learning on Qdrant. It has certifications, it has labs, it has notebooks, it has videos. It's free certification. You can use this. You'll get a badge with it that and certification code that you can use with your potential employers and your resume if you'd like. But most importantly, it's structured learning where you're able to make sure that you have thorough knowledge from the foundations upwards. And we're going to start with an essentials course, but we're going to continue to add more courses to this academy. So that's why it's not just a Qdrant course, it's a full academy that we're launching. And already available are community resources. We have tutorials, technical articles, integrations, guides, documentation, and you've probably seen various forms of this, and they're kind of like floating around out there, and there's lots of good resources. We're working on streamlining all this to make a really solid developer experience. We're going to be uplifting our developer portal. We want to make sure that developers of all skill levels, anywhere in the developer journey, can find the resources they need and have a solid developer experience with the materials that we're creating and the community's generating. We want to make this more open, like an open source community where you can contribute to the guides and you can contribute to the content that is helping other developers. So that's all available, and that is all to help you in your journey. And while we talk about the journey, Qdrant for Startups. So for developers or founders that are interested in taking their journey to start their own company or have already started their own company and are coming into Qdrant, we have Start for Founders. This program has been around for a while, but I wanted to highlight it. There's a 20% discount on the first year for Qdrant Cloud. There's also expert technical advice, one-on-one sessions with Qdrant experts. We'll do everything we can to help you get going as a startup. It's something that I really appreciate about our co-founders, our founders of this company. Them having gone through going through the startup process, making it something that they support other startups with, and giving back to the community in that way is something we're really proud of. And if you want to apply to the startup program, you can find that on our website. Just Google Qdrant for Startups or come talk to us throughout the day, and we can point you to that. And so just to kind of recap, we talked about various ways that the community is ways that it's growing in momentum. We talked about some metrics. We talked about how the DevRel team's contributing through structured learning in the academy. We talked about the Qdrant stars and how they're leading, and we talked about the startup program. But ultimately, the platform itself is for developers of all sizes. So whether you're at a hackathon and you're building a prototype, or you're a Fortune 500 company going to billion vector scale, you're using the same core platform, you're using the same API, you're using the same engine, any environment, you're using the same technology, and that's really powerful. So it really helps you scale that way. So no compromise, full powered, everything you need, all for developers of all sizes. Now, building is only half the journey. Scaling is the other half of the journey. And so with that, I'm really pleased to welcome Inaam Syed to the stage. AWS has been a great partner for us, and their infrastructure has helped a lot of founders and startups, as well as enterprises of various scales, scale their infrastructure for their deployments. So, Inaam?
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am Inaam. The floating head over here is me. I am a startup solutions architect at AWS. And as a startup solutions architect, I work very closely with startup founders, CTOs, to help them build what they want to build very quickly. And today, I'll be sharing some insights about what are we seeing in the startup ecosystem, what kind of startups are flourishing, how is Qdrant and AWS helping in this journey for founders. I had some slides on introductions of agents. I don't know what I was thinking coming to a vector space event, introducing agents, so I'll skip on those slides, but Before we jump into the insights, I would like to quickly give a recap of how far the tech industry has come, right? And especially the SaaS-specific market, right? The idea of SaaS, delivering software over internet, was kind of pioneered by Salesforce. The idea lied around, but Salesforce kind of brought it to reality. And one of the reasons that they were able to do it is because web browsers started getting more mature. They can do authentication. They were able to do code operations. And then Salesforce is like, hey, why do we ask our customers to install software where we can deliver it over the internet? And that kind of started a snowball of multiple people trying out that ideas. And then we had many startups and softwares being delivered over the internet. And then there was this bottleneck of infrastructure. Not everyone had access to the infrastructure. And then came in the cloud. AWS pioneered the idea of cloud. Soon many people came in as well. And then the infrastructure component got democratized, right? And then everyone was able to kind of bring in the softwares over the internet. And then there was a bottleneck of funding and exploring new ideas that were not explored before, really high-risk ideas. And then VC ecosystem came in saying, if the idea is good enough, we can fund it. And then we had many, many ideas and many softwares being delivered over the internet. And then we are here today. The idea of SaaS is just not an idea anymore. We are a $250 billion industry, wherein there are softwares delivered over the internet serving different purposes, right? So it's quite mature. Like web browsers, like what cloud did to this ecosystem, and like what VCs did to the ecosystem at some certain point of time. The question is, what's the next thing that we see coming in, where all the investors or the founders are investing their time? And the answer is agents, right? We see a lot of agentic startups right now focusing on solving different problems. And the difference that we have right now is that we have the ability for the systems to reason and make a plan and execute that plan as they see fit. This was not possible before. What does it mean in terms of value proposition, right? So as a software so far, we have been building really sophisticated reporting systems, really sophisticated task management systems, and we deliver them over the internet, yes. What is the new value proposition? Why do people think this is promising? And the answer is that they add a new value proposition on top of what we have today. We have the reporting and everything that we do. But the component of reasoning and getting tasks done on behalf of your customers is something that's really new and everyone is exploring. If I take certain domains and take some examples for you, for example, in the domain of HR, we do have performance monitoring tools today. We do have onboarding tools or training modules that many SaaS providers are providing today, wherein we have to use those softwares to make use of them and then use it for our purposes as we see fit. The change that we expect in HR, this is just an example, there are startups trying this out, but instead of giving you an onboarding tool, there are startups that can claim now saying, hey, we will onboard 100 people for you, and this would be the charge per onboarding. You don't need to think about what are the complexities and configurations. There might be some configurations you need to do, but we are not charging you per month or something, but the amount of workload that we can get done for you. The second thing is regarding sales. There are multiple CRMs that we have today. Salesforce is one of them. And the next stage, the new value proposition layer that we can create for our customers is in taking away some of the workloads for them. For example, imagine promising that, hey, every week we can give you 15 new lead generation opportunities that would have a certain quality and you can rely on them, right? And you charge per amount of opportunities that you create. And in tech, we kind of already see this. How many of you are vibe coders over here? Cool, nice. I don't see many hands. I don't know what to make out of it. Don't need to be shy, it seems like. Cool, all right. So, we already see this, right? Like, how many of you know Lovable? Oh wow, okay, thanks for the spotlight. Right? It kind of, instead of you having like a tool for a CI/CD process, repository, and being a part of the whole chain, you're saying, hey, we kind of automate the whole chain for you, and we give you the end product as the output, right? I'm not saying it's there today, but that's where I see the industry heading. And it's pretty exciting to be a part of that. from an investor's perspective, where does the investment go in, right? We have two types of startups predominantly. The model builders who are building these foundation models and LLMs that we are getting more and more relying on. And there are agentic startups who are using these LLMs for some use case or creating that new value proposition that we spoke about. The model builders have to raise a lot of capital, right? It starts from 500 million to 13 billion and beyond. Their valuations are between 3 billion to 60 billion because the impact that they can do is pretty big. The revenue realization is pretty interesting. They're mostly pre-revenue. They don't even have a business model yet. And the infrastructure cost is pretty high, right? But when it comes to agentic startups, when I was doing my research, I was not able to find any startup more than 200 million, raised 200 millions. The valuation of these startups are lesser than the model builders, but still interesting. This is where it gets most interesting, right? The revenue numbers, most of the agentic startups are already revenue generating, and within 12 to 14 months of their operation. This is very interesting. It's the proof of the new value proposition that they're creating and their customers willing to pay for it. And the infrastructure cost over here is pretty low. So what are the components that we need to build a sophisticated agent? We need something to maintain the context, right? The agent needs to know what it's doing. And then we do use Qdrant like some of the startups do use Qdrant very well for these use cases. We have tools where you have API calls that you want the LLMs to take, depending on the need. You have multiple agents, and usually when you have to build something that automates a workload, you'll have 30 to 40 different agents that you build, and then them orchestrating between themselves. And the orchestration that we just spoke about, right? It's pretty complex, but the open source technologies are helpful over here. You have the LangChain. How many of you used LangChain over here? Wow, okay, cool. Then we have Strands from Amazon, recently released LangGraph. It kind of helps in taking away some of the scaffolding efforts that we have to do, right? But there is still undifferentiated heavy lifting that you need to do, even after using these open source framework, when it comes to infrastructure and so on. And this is something I always advise the founders or the CTOs I work on. Let's kind of have a way to look at how much time of the team is going into doing undifferentiated lifting and differentiated weightlifting. By differentiated weightlifting, I mean doing the work that actually makes a difference in the domain that you're working on, and not doing the same thing that everyone else is probably doing, right? And with that in mind, during our New York Summit in May, we released a new service called Bedrock Agent Core. And I will not go into the details, but Agent Core is a service that will help you take away all the infrastructure heavyweight from you, and then help your development team focus on building the differences that you need to make your startup flourish, right? So building that exact feature that helping you maximize the time that you spend on building the differentiation. There are different components in Agent Core, like runtime, that helps you with deploying your agent for compute. There are solutions for security, called identity in Agent Core, that is going to make sure what kind of tools and what kind of agents have permission to do what kind of agent can speak to which agent, and so on. And there are observability tools on top of agentic frameworks that you use. But one important thing over here is the memory, right? And we see multiple startups that we work with using Qdrant for their vector store or their search engine, vector search engine that they want to use. Thank you, Andrey. And the reason, if I had to summarize, so I have customers that I deal with, and then I had to read a couple of blog posts to see what are the reasons they do this, is when you build sophisticated agentic architectures, right? So one agent needs to do a one lookup, and then you have maybe a group of 15 agents coming together to create one response back to the user. And then each agent will have a latency that it takes, right? Like even if this is super low, the accumulative latency would add up to cause a bad user experience in the end. And that's where I see a lot of customers using Qdrant for this. It offers single-digit latencies, even at 100 billion vectors at scale, right? So it scales with really good performance. The second thing is text is really good, but it's kind of limiting. But when you're specializing in a domain, you're building a startup in a domain, for example, in legality, you have data across different formats, right? Videos, audio files, and so on. It handles multimodal content very well from the way it's built. And finally, like we heard about all the announcement and the efforts that we are putting in the previous talks, the developer experience, right? The native API tools that we use, for example, the Terraform support was being announced, and so on. This makes developer experience really easy and really helps in overall adoption and also building experience of the solution that you're building. So these were the reasons that I saw, and one use case that I wanted to highlight is from a customer called Sprinkler. And you can scan the QR code to read the detailed blog post, but what they do is they unify customer experience management in a single platform. So they have a lot of data that they had to go through, and they were building a FAQ agent and also a recommendation agent that on top of their platform. And they initially built this with a different vector database, and then they moved to Qdrant. After moving to Qdrant, they found that the performance that they had on Qdrant and AWS is the same as they had before, but it's just 30% cheaper now. And this is the second part is the most interesting part, right? Like, again, think about multi-agent orchestration, multiple agents speaking together to give one response back. They are able to have a throughput of 250 requests per second. So per second, they're able to handle 250 requests, which is pretty significant and pretty useful. And with these things in mind, we have partnered with Qdrant. We have deepened our partnership. We endorse Qdrant as one of our generative AI competency partner. And also, if you want to use AWS and Qdrant together, you can just go to the AWS marketplace and start using Qdrant from there. And like Niels mentioned, we have a promotion of 20% off for startups who are using Qdrant and AWS together. You can scan the QR code. I'll just give this 2 more seconds. I see some of you scanning to get a 20% discount. Cool. Quickly just summarizing how startups, AWS helps startups over here. We have around 15 years of experience helping different startups, and we have provided around 6 billion in credits. Supporting the ecosystem, we have some of the popular startups in the market today built on AWS from day one, like Airbnb, Docker, and so on. In this program, it's not limited to credits, right? This is what I wanted to highlight. You get access to industry experts, experts on different industry domains like healthcare and so on as well to help you build your startup. We truly understand where you are as a startup and see what's best, what we can offer best to help you over there. And with that, I would say enjoy the Vector Space Day and have a nice day in Berlin. Thank you.